Hi, everyone. I'm Akash, the CEO of Airtime, a user engagement platform empowering product teams to validate user needs within days. Today, I'll be talking to Jan Kiekeben about moving beyond knowledge sharing. Jan, you have like an amazing background, product coach, UX leader. I don't even want to go on listing. I think you're a better person to say a few words about yourself and where you come from.
Yeah, hello to all the audiences. I cannot see you. I wish I would love to see you. I really like seeing people in these kind of formats, but this is the remote world. And first of all, thank you, Akos, for having me here at Airtime in this format. I'm really happy to share what I know or even what I don't know. Yeah. So some words about me. Yeah, I'm currently working as head of UX at a small startup here in Germany, in the green tech industry. But I have started. Let's go a little bit back. I have started studying print media management. So and you hear print in there. Yeah, I have started in the print industry with the good old CMYK and stuff like this. I actually learned how to operate a printing machine in my field of study. Yeah, that were crazy times, but that was my first approach into the media industry. And from there, I started my first career. I always call it my first career as a consultant. I worked at a software company and worked together with large printing houses from the San Francisco Chronicle down to the Nairobi Standard, and worked there as a consultant in that field. And from there, I started my second career. And if you're really interested, I can tell you a long story, but I keep it short here. And moved into the UX industry. Yeah, started my second career as a UX designer, classic UX designer in the digital industry. Progressed from normal junior to mid to senior UX designer, all the standard stuff. And my third career then, or yeah, up until now, is changing rapidly. It's changing fast because I learned over the years and decades of work that I have some skills that are valuable for teams, to pick my mind or to help them get empowered, discovering innovative solutions. And it all started with when my former boss, told me or asked me, "Hey, Jan, you are doing such a great job with your team. The way you work with your team, can you make that happen in the organization with other teams? Because that works." And we can go into deeper what worked and stuff like that. Because I approached the lean UX kind of way of working, and I was really pragmatic, and the organization struggled a little bit with all this long project work. They like tedious long projects, and I was doing quick stuff, and had quick failures and quick successes. And then that started the whole way when I went into my third kind of career in leading teams, in coaching teams, in even I worked as a design operations manager and made all the operations of the design practice in our organization work. So yeah, and now I'm
Jan,
a head of UX in a startup.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, amazing, amazing. And you actually provided a brilliant segue into one of the first topics and themes that I'd like to explore, which is about best practices in discovery processes. And let's just pick the your previous experiences when you had that lean setup that your boss wanted to replicate with other teams, as well as your experience as an internal product coach. And I'm interested if you could distill for us a few best practice and example
Mm.
how you can share with other teams discovery practices and approaches that will make them more efficient. So you came up with something, it works. How do you expand it to other
Yeah.
teams so that they
Oh,
accept? Yeah.
yeah, and I can tell you from the get-go, my first attempt to kind of scale the way of working did not work. Maybe it's even more interesting for the audience what I tried, where I failed hard. From my perspective, what did not work. because often we maybe a big learning is what I tried and did not work. Maybe some people in the audience think twice before approaching the same mistake as I did. So what I did at the beginning when I was asked to scale the way of working was, I always call it telling people how to work. So what I did is I started as a design operations manager, and founded that discipline at our organization. What I did is I made kind of presentations. I made diagrams, process diagrams, double diamonds, and cycles, and all these fancy things. And I was preaching basically how to work the way I successfully work. But honestly, I did that for a year, trying to really tell the organization how to work, but that got us nowhere. It really got us nowhere. Some tiny tools I maybe set up were adopted. I wouldn't say nothing worked. So all this stuff, the tools that were easily approachable, I made some templates for one-pagers. I made templates for how to set up teams in a, have you ever heard of RACI and DAISY kind of responsibility frameworks? I made templates for that and quick workshops where you can set up when a new team comes together, who's responsible for what and stuff like that. These kind of easy to adopt templates worked, but the overall approach in terms of how to work and collaborate in the team, telling them how to do it just by telling them, got us nowhere. And so the best practice after the fact that I learned, and that was then the tipping point when I started going into the product discovery coaching, was the coaching approach. So what I did is I was not calling myself product discovery coach from the get-go, but what I found one team who were struggling with a very specific discovery of a new product they wanted to embark on. And they said, we have not the many resources. And I was by accident lunchtime, you know how that works. Got in contact with the product manager of that team, and we were chatting, and I said, yeah, why don't we try the Lean UX canvas? I can help you with a workshop there, and yada yada. So, and he was totally, yeah, something that gives me something to grab on. And that got me into, okay, then I started with that workshop, and they were super happy with the workshop. And from there I said, yeah, sure, we have now the workshop, but I also can help you the next weeks over and over and over again. And that got me into this, oh, it works when I work alongside the team. That doesn't mean I was working full week with the team. I had then developed over time some touch points, some selected touch points where I come in. We can go deeper how the life of a product discovery coach is in an organization. But that worked. It worked when I was working with them on their initiative, on their challenge. Then suddenly I was able to say, let's do it this way. Let's use this this kind of method. Now let's run an experiment. We know nothing, so let's run a freaking experiment in the next 3 days. Or yeah, now it's time for a research or a survey or an A/B test or whatnot, right? So this worked much better than the approach of going on stage and telling people what to do.
Yeah. Let's so what I'm really interested in here as well is even like if you tell people, maybe they follow, they don't. In your example, it was a negative one, and so you found a way to work besides them as opposed to telling them how to do things. At the same time, or not at the same time, but so let's pick an example. You tell them about a particular experiment or a particular way how they should formulate questions when they write interviews, and then they remember it the next time they do it. How do we avoid that they don't regress afterwards and sort of forget what you discussed, but they build it into their modus operandi and build it into their everyday processes, that whatever you discussed is something that they live by?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because you're basically asking the question, can I speed up learning? or shortcut even learning and making mistakes. So when I did my coaching sessions, so quickly to understand my setup, I was working with a maximum of 4 teams at a time, 4 product teams, and we had routinely met 30 minutes twice a week. So I had fixed 1 hour interaction with the product trio. So with a UX designer, product manager, and a tech and an engineer in a best case scenario. And so that was the setup touch points. And then addition on that, we did some workshops, or we did whatever was necessary. Yeah. But basically they did the work, and I was coaching them through this uncertainty of product discovery. And it is a fact that when they were saying, okay, now we go on a research or on a customer interview to discover opportunities, or we were going with a prototype into a user test, they made mistakes. Sure, they were asking leading questions all the time. Happens to the best of us. So, but I was never obsessed with perfection, but with repeating it over and over and making it a kind of a habit, right? Starting small, get the product manager who has never spoken to or never talked to a user because he's afraid of, for example, in Germany, we had colleagues who were only speaking English. And in German, we were producing a product, creating a product for the German market, and they were always hesitant talking German to someone because my German is not good. But it turned out a lot of German people can't speak English. Well, fine, no problem. Just talk to them in English. No issues. So, and it was sometimes only this first little move. Talk once with one customer who is, if he says I don't want to talk in English, then okay, say sorry. Then it's not happening. But didn't happen. It was always this. Yeah, sure, let's talk in English. Then the German user was stumbling a little bit in the English, and the colleague was trying his best to understand. But there were insights in these interviews, and it got them to do it. Maybe there were leading questions that were not the perfect kind of script of interview, but they did it. And the next time, a week later, it got better. And the week later, it got even better. And the week later, even better. And that
Okay.
was kind of the approach to get to mastery. You have to do it. And the first interview, if it sucks, who cares? Go to the next one.
So what I'm hearing from what you say, that there's you also set up, you didn't just coach them on how to do things, but gave them a cadence that,
Sure.
okay, this week
Yes.
you're talking to 2 users, next week you're talking to them, and then
Yes.
how does this cadence look like? Can you bring us an example of
Oh yeah,
that?
my best example was one of my first teams, and a really lovely colleague of mine. She was the product manager of a product, and it started like a lot of projects started in the industry these days. There was a manager, and he had an idea for a feature. I mean, who has not yet been at that place when the director thinks, hey, the competition does feature X, we have to build the same feature, yada, yada. You know how that works, right? And she was at the point, and she said, Jan, I really would love to challenge that, because I don't think it's a good idea. It's, yeah. So long story short, I was going into discovery with her and the designer in that team, and we were at this point, even after a week or two, one week or two, when we started at the beginning. We started a little bit, okay, what problem are we solving, this kind of work, but then we uncovered, okay, we were understanding what users we will build this for, and we learned that the product manager and the designer has never ever spoken to one of these kind of users. Never. They have an idea that they are existing, but never spoken to that kind of user. And I said, okay, then in the next 2 days, like not in 4 weeks, we have to talk to 20 of these. I just want to have one interview for 10 or 15 minutes in the next 2 days with one of these kind of users. Where can we find someone of these? And quickly, and have a 20-minute interview. Don't go into preparing for 2 weeks kind of a script, what you want to ask. We know what the problem is. Let's just talk about the problem space with that particular user, and we'll see what we learn. And that was really fun, because then we were thinking, where do we find one user of that target group? And it happened to be that they were in our own company. So in another division, in not in our own, not in that product division, in a totally related other company, but we were able to Slack them and or email them and say, hey, we need to pick your brain, kind of like what you do with me right here, right now, and let's have a 20-minute call. I need to understand how you work, basically. And yeah, after 2 days, we had so many. In this one interview, there were 3 aha moments where she said, like, oh, so many wrong assumptions we were making how they work. And then these aha moments, only one interview, we were able to go into BI data after, into analytics data, and see, is that what the one user, one target user said? Can we find that in the data somewhere? And this is the way how it led to a discovery, understanding how they work, and without big planning, it took us 2 days.
So this is very interesting what you share. I think it was more than a year ago. I talked to the head of research, an amazing company, and at the time he wanted to involve engineers and the broader product team in user research, and he had this internal insight that if he could get people just on the very first interview with him, then they, like anyone who joined the first interview, would join subsequent interviews with users on their own, because in
Yeah,
that first one you have so many aha moments that
yeah,
it triggers curiosity. You
yeah,
realize some of your own false assumptions
absolutely.
about users, and you want to make sure that, I think like all of us have this
Yeah,
expectation, from intellectual expectation from ourselves, that that if we realized we weren't like 100% on target, then how can I learn and be
yeah,
have a
yeah,
better understanding of users? And
absolutely.
the story that you shared confirmed this this experience that I had. Um,
And
yeah,
the
yeah,
interesting part is, on a classical way of working, or how a lot of big companies work, is when they have this feature idea and the problem understood quite okay, what's the problem space we're operating in, they launch big research. And I wouldn't, I'm not saying that the big research wouldn't have uncovered that same aha moment, the same insights. And the big research for sure would have uncovered even more insights. But the interesting part was that in 2 days we were uncovering 2 or 3 so critical assumptions. If this is true, what this user, how they operate, is, if it's really true that they operate like this, the whole feature falls apart. And it turned out it is this way. And we had, after 1 quarter, we were doing the discovery next to a complete relaunch of that product. That was also like an interesting thing, that you can do this as a side job. I wouldn't
yep.
recommend to do a discovery on a side shop, but for that team was interesting. That she was, after the quarter, able to go to her manager with this feature idea and lay out why this idea is a bad idea, and we shouldn't invest in that, because it's not strategy. We uncovered with these 3 assumptions, it's not, there is a feature, but it's not strategy fit. It's not working for the audience we want to go for, and it's not working for the strategy the company wants to go for. And we were clearly able to outline why it's not working, and stuff like that. And this kind of saved us 6 months development time.
Yeah, I think that's the best argument for research. That the
Yeah,
return on investment,
yeah, right.
saving months
And
of development time.
I
Um,
love this story so much, because
yeah,
it's a negative story, right? It's not, we did research and it turned out to be a big bang and a big revenue feature. No, it was kind of the other way. It just saved us wasting money.
but yes, Yes, also equally important. Jan, I'm looking at the clock. We have like 8 minutes left from our section, and
Sure.
there's another topic that I'd love to get your opinion on, which is democratizing
Yeah.
user insights. And what I mean here is that and this is a phenomenon that emerged in the last 10 or so years, is that whenever researchers they conduct interviews and sessions with users, they compile insights in one tool or another, and then have sophisticated ways of sharing these
Yes.
insights with the rest of the organization, maybe product people, maybe people outside of product. And I wanted to get your opinion on, or not just opinion, your experience. What are some interesting approaches and practices that you've seen
Mm.
that are efficient in sharing these insights, user insights across the organization?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of attempts. What maybe I'm not the popular opinion I have, and I'm not. I'm saying sorry to all the researchers out there. But what I see that did not work as intended was this big reports, big research repositories where you can look up stuff and find all the big reports. Honestly, when I was working with teams, with product discovery teams, the best progress I'm measuring research on the progress I make discovering a solution. So I can make a ton of research that tells me how complicated the world it is, but if it does not bring me closer to solving that problem, I'm not so sure if the research is so valuable. And um, what I think what works for me, maybe other people see it differently, is when the product team itself does the research. Maybe not the super high quality research. When you go for really good big studies, you have to have experts knowing what they are doing when they do really big studies. But when you have a feature idea and want to validate that, it's always from my perspective, the team who is responsible for the solution should be 100% involved in the research.
So it should be a
Yeah.
team sport, not
It should be a team sport. You are lucky if you have the resources that you can get a researcher in your team, really exclusive for that initiative. Get one of the researchers to be there when you are struggling and have all these questions. How will it work? What can we do? Is it now time for a survey? Who can quickly cramp a survey together in SurveyMonkey or whatever and fire it out to 100 users or 1,000? You're lucky if you have a researcher being there, ensuring quality and stuff like that, not making the easy mistakes as a unskilled researcher. But I would never delegate understanding. As a UX lead and as a team lead, leading design teams and stuff, and coaching product teams, the biggest mantra I have: never delegate understanding, because yeah, you have to hear it. As you said, the engineer has to hear from the user how he is struggling, that this software is crap or is amazing. The other way around, it also works when software, I love this part.
yeah.
The team needs to hear that they are not scrapping that part after the fact, right? In the next
And
iteration.
Jan, if you so let's say we're in a company. User research is a team sport, so it's
Yes.
in a you're head of research. You're happy because your user researchers in the team, they always have product managers, designers, engineers joining them, and let's focus on interviews when they
Yeah.
talk to users. What should happen after a session? Because it was great that the developer was there and they listened to it.
Yeah.
To what extent are they ideally involved in the analysis synthesis part of the
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. So what I like to do, and what I always encourage to do, is right after. So we have a 30-minute interview, and I book an hour. So because we have the interview, and immediately after we kind of digest what have we heard, what are the aha moments, what have we like we immediately deconstruct what have you heard, what have we heard, and write a little interview snapshot. it's just like the size of a one PowerPoint slide with a quote. Quote that we remember, that was that interview, and some insights we gathered, some opportunities we uncovered, and maybe even if we heard an opportunity, we map it in terms of, okay, this is the way the user would do it, that's what he told us, and really digest the stories we heard. And that's the thing we immediately do right after the interview. We are not waiting for the next day to a meeting, and because then it's
This is very important. Just yesterday, I had a discussion with someone, user researcher, and she complained that the developers are joining the session, but once they're out, like she prepared a Miro board where they can put their key learnings in there asynchronously, so they're not going, but the engagement plummets. So developers are keen to join the discussion, but we're not keen to work asynchronously on a Miro board, leaving their like top findings in there. And I don't mean to pick on developers, so don't get get it wrong. I use it as an example, like the two personas, the one person leading the research and the other person either like an observer or a contributor. And
it's even the let's say there is a leader from someone from leadership observing, and he's not coming to the after the review afterwards. That doesn't help. So I'm everybody who is in observing. We just stay in the call. The user is leaving the Teams or the Zoom or whatever call, and we just stay there and immediately go into, okay, that's what we heard. Let's go through our list of digesting what have we heard, and come up after the 30 minutes digestion. I will always have an interview snapshot with the 3 best insights, 3 best opportunities, sometimes even having a little journey mapped out with post-its, what the user would do after the fact and where the pain then happened. It's just a basic story mapping, like Jeff Patton does, where I can say, okay, in this whole journey, there was the pain point. It's sometimes better to journey map it quickly. It's not a big deal when you have done that a lot of times with exercise. It comes naturally to journey map, story map. Sorry, and that's the best way to document where pain in a long process happened.
Amazing, and that's a nice final word. We're at 17:30 my time, so our 30 minutes is off, and I see a bunch of great questions in the chat. And even though I have a bunch of other questions, I wanna give the floor to the audience. These questions deserve it, I tell you. So I'm just gonna throw them one by one at you. Okay. So the first question is from Rita. And she asked, like, how do you manage to reach the users, and what kind of stakeholders do you usually involve in interviews? So one is about recruitment, and the other one is the type of persona that you.
So the first is, how do I recruit users?
How do you manage to reach the users? Yes, that's the first part of the question.
Getting kind of users in interviews. We can have a whole webinar about just about that. It's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. Depends on the kind of targeting you are looking for. So to some degree, for example, at my previous company, we had a very sophisticated design and research operations team. And we were really lucky. The product teams are really lucky. They could specify what kind of user they want to have. We want to have a premium subscriber who is, I don't know, self-employed and yada, yada, yada. So they could really specify what kind of users they want to have. And the research operations team, they were able to source these kind of users, because we had millions of users on our platform. So that's
the luxury of having potentially a panel or a big database where you can slice and dice demographic and other kind of data. And then I guess your colleagues used emails to reach out and set up calls.
Yeah, no, we had a recruiting agency who did that for us. Yeah, but they were able to tinker into our database of users and were able to reach out to them. Yes, that was a luxury. I completely agree. We had millions of users, kind of somehow. So the product team, it felt quite easy to recruit users. Because there were sophisticated tools and services from the research operations team in place. For example, now I'm in a startup. I don't have all these resources. And how do I recruit users now? It's much more challenging right now. We don't have millions of users or customers. We're just in the thousands. So sure, I can send emails, but typically you need 50 to 100 even mails to get one in an interview. So that's not healthy. So what you do is you try a lot of stuff, so you can go out to buy it. I mean, you can purchase recruiting services from user research agencies. They will go out and find people, and then you can target them. Maybe not the best targeting you need, but at least something. You can go on social media even as a startup. Most of the time you do something on social media. Maybe you are lucky to have a little incentive for something, and when you have a good social media team in the startup, what most startups have something to do with social media to get the word out, then recruit there or give it a try with some incentive. And that's two ways of doing it.
Yeah, I think on top of your second example, what I did a couple of months ago was to post in a Slack group, in a Slack community, let's say Mind the Product, where I thought my target audience mingles, and I could. I wouldn't say easily, but like a single post brought me 3, 4 interviews, which is
Perfect.
it's good enough if you're in the early stages and you want to show like a new prototype or click prototype to anyone. The second part of Rita's question was which stakeholders internal stakeholders, as my understanding in the questions, do you involve in user interviews?
So when I do product discovery coaching with my teams, the minimum people who are in these interviews is the product trio. So the thing is, what I'm always looking for when we discover new features, what I'm trying to have on the table in discovery are the 4 perspectives of the 4 risks of discovery. So we have the feasibility risk, we have the viability risk, we have the desirability risk, and the usability risk. And what I talk to the team is, do we have all perspectives in the room or on the table when we are having workshops or when we're having discussions? Same for when we talk to users, when we're doing research. Sometimes you need 4 people for that. Sometimes you need 2 people for that. Always depends on if the product manager maybe the product manager has an engineering background, who knows, or the product manager has a design background, and he can say, okay, I can speak to that well enough, good enough.
So as long as you can cover those 4 fields,
the 4
right?
areas
the 4
of risk,
risks,
yes.
You can cover. You're pretty much set up.
When I have a coaching session with my team and I'm asking here, hey, we have a feasibility risk, who can speak to that? And they basically look me in the eye and say, I don't know, I have to ask my engineers. Then I know on that discovery a really critical perspective is missing. So I really work hard and ask for having that perspective on the discovery. Bring in an engineer, please.
Amazing, Jan. Thanks for sharing your guidance on this one. And I have another question from Rita, which is particularly interesting. How do you manage work delivery when there is no time to do research? It's not ideal, but it does happen that the building it's just going on and there's no time.
Yeah. There's always this we don't have time to do research kind of. So what I as a leader now I'm in leadership, and I have to advocate for UX research and for UX methods. So to all the leaders out there in the audience, it is our role and it's our duty to make time for research. So it's now my duty to advocate for it and make time. And how do I do that? Is I talk about risk. That's the best thing you can do. And risk can be expressed in, let's say, brand image risk. If we fuck up this first release, what they are going to say about us, or we talk about monetary risk. If we suck at this, we will have a lot of churn, and you know how that works. Or we talk about even secondary risk. That is when we do not address the problem properly, we have not understood, and we just cramp out some first MVP-ish, that kind of thing, crap software. How many support calls do we create with that? So the support needs to ramp up, and maybe you have stories of the past in your talk to your support leaders, which releases got kind of failed or created a lot of support. And this is risk. This is risk. You can say, okay, when this is not working, we assess that support calls will go up, and that costs money. So, and that's when I'm talking about risk. And when we talk about risk, that's what leaders and managers can do and can handle. We can say, okay, we can mitigate that risk. And to some degree, mitigating risk is either de-scoping or going slow, or doing research, understanding what we are doing here.
This is a very good approach, especially that the human psyche is very receptive of risks, and we in general try to avoid negative outcomes
Right.
in our lives. Amazing, very good example. I have a question from Mary. How would you integrate customer service ticket insights to product discovery?
Oh, you have to give me what is meant by what is it? Service?
So customer service tickets. So so far we've been focusing on interviews, and there's like a lot of complaints, wishes, requirements coming in through customer service tickets, and the question is how do you use that wealth of information in product discovery?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So what I really like, and that's not just for customer service tickets. I like that even for big research studies or even compiling digital analytics data. What I really like is insight snacking, I call it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have picked that up from someone out of the internet. It's insight snacking. So for example, what I did once at my last company, I was working with support, and and I made kind of a quiz out of what do you think a lot of our users, what is the most complained feature in our software or in our service, and by making it a little playful, I was able to snack insights in terms of, hey, by the way, that feature is the most complained one. Did you know? Kind of way of working. You can make it that playful. It was a fun thing for me to do because I had access to the support ticket system, and the rest of the division was not so into this system. So I was insight snacking. What could I find? And also an insight, and snack that to the wider organization of the design team. You can do that. I even do that with digital analytics data. And so what I like of this insight snacking is that there are tiny bits of I didn't know. Sometimes it is to the receiving audience, whoever I posted in Slack groups and Slack channels. They are, oh, this is interesting, I didn't know. And then it kind of, you know how that works when you give like just the little finger, and then they ask, can you give me more? Can you give me more? Can you give me more? This is interesting. This is the way then how I find it, I make it work that they are digging deeper into support tickets or into digital analytics
So
or
it sounds
into
like you're
reports.
gamifying that,
Yeah, the
a little bit.
gamifying is not
Maybe
the
I'm going too
key. The
far with the term,
gamifying,
but
yeah, don't get me wrong, you have to do it gamification kind of way or in the fun way with a quiz, how I did it. That was just for my personal entertainment. It worked fine because people like quizzes, I guess so. But inside snacking, the message I want to, or the point I want to make is you have to kind of make tiny insights, share tiny pieces of insights, and that leads to curiosity to get more.
okay,
Does it
got
make
it.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a last question from Chloe, unless somebody posts further ones. And the question is, it goes back to developers. How to transfer knowledge to developers if developers don't join research process? In a big organization, there's a bit of a silo way of working that makes
Mm,
developers unable to join the research work. It's not
mm,
ideal, but not easy to change immediately.
mm,
So if they can't make
yes.
it, how do you still make sure that you pass on the learnings to them?
Mm. Oh yeah, that's a hard one. Because the obvious answer, what I heard often on conferences and stuff, is make a recording of the interview and share the recording so they can watch it on their own time. But honestly, I have learned they are not watching it. um, and I made like I didn't do research about developers. It happened to happen that when we were back in my old company, when I was sharing Microsoft Teams recordings of the interviews, um, every time I was sharing the link, and every time someone wanted to view it, they have to ask for permission to view it. Microsoft, whatever permission, yada yada. But that was kind of the measurement, how many developers ask for viewing permissions, right? When you click the link on the sharing on the Slack channel, they were asked permission. Then I got an email and I saw who wanted to view the thing, and I have to grant it. Ridiculous IT administration bug, I can say, but it was my feature to understand how many people actually watched the interviews, the recordings, and honestly, it's yeah. So what it can do is, if you have the resources and the time and you can make like shortcut videos. Akos, how are they called? You
Highlight
highlight
reels.
videos, right? Highlight videos. You can cut highlight videos. You can make kind of this reels, how it's on Instagram, like little stories to snack even short excerpts of the interviews. It's a lot of work, I can tell you. Um, so yeah, I would really think hard of what can I do, even if it's just an experiment with one engineer that he joins the team and finds some time for an experiment that lasts 2 weeks. Come on, what are 2 weeks? Come join us in the discovery. I know it's not legal. Don't tell anybody. Just come and yeah, you know what I mean. Work the system, whatever boundaries you have in your organization, because it's nothing is more valuable that the engineer sees how it works and can talk to his manager one-on-one. Hey, we need to do this. It worked for me. I much better understood the problem at hand. I much better understood how the prototype, the designer got together, how it worked, how a user was operating the prototype, what did he say about the prototype. That totally changes the game of engineering and building the solution afterwards. And yeah, I would really try to work the system dark channels to get one engineer at least for one discovery for 1 week into the team, or for 2 weeks, to have this proof of concept.
Yeah,
That's what I would try.
very
And
very good.
sure, if you have resources, make highlight videos, make this inside snacking available.
So highlight videos, highlight reels, and finding your ambassadors. building on what you said, Thomas Sharon back in the days when he built one of the first research repositories at WeWork, what he did was he created dedicated highlight reels for each of the departments for topics where he knew, like, he put insights about topics that they were working on, and he went with this playlist of highlight reels to them. It's an
Yeah.
effort to do that, but it's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good way to demonstrate it, because just by posting a 30-minute interview, it may be 15 minutes into watching when the person watching, like,
Yeah.
realizes, okay, this is an
Yeah.
important nugget for me. So I
Yeah.
thanks for bringing it up, Jan. I have we're 2 minutes beyond our scheduled time. We have a last question. Jan, do you
Sure.
have like 2 more minutes that we could squeeze
Sure.
in?
Sure. No worries. Go ahead.
Amazing.
Shoot.
So all of you who have to step out, don't worry, we're recording this, and for those who stay, the question is from Vinny. As technology and user behavior evolve, how do you see the future of product discovery and knowledge sharing in product teams evolving? Are there any emerging trends or practices to watch out for?
Oh, that's a good question. Who knows what artificial intelligence will change on product discovery? I don't know yet. So when we talk about trends in product discovery, it's really tricky to answer, because what I learned, even in one organization where I was coaching 10 plus teams, there were no two teams equal to another in terms of maturity, skills, and practice of product discovery. And that's crazy, isn't it? We were an organization with 30 plus product teams, and I was coaching 10 in over 1 year, 1.5 years I was there, 10 plus teams, something like that, and no team was like the other. So what can I tell you about emerging trends? There are a lot of tools coming up, crazy cool tools. There are good practices. There are some practices like I'm a big fan of assumption testing and assumption mapping and story mapping. So visualizing thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So really, because as a group, what I often learned is that we use the same words, but we don't mean the same thing. So the best example is when we talk about MVP. I would love to see an interview, a research in a big organization define the word MVP for me, and you will get 20 different definitions what it is. This is crazy. And so what is my biggest trend as a coach, and when I see teams working really good, making good progress, what they do is they visualize thinking. It helps them to talk to their bosses, to their stakeholders, external of their team. It helps them to digest and show complexity and understand complexity. So if there is one thing that I don't know if artificial intelligence will ever cover, is really visualizing thinking, showing complexity, and this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, this is my personal trend. Really bringing teams to that practice and habit. But other than that, sure. Tell me, Akros, do you know a big trend in product discovery
It's
these
no,
days?
I like your example on visualizing, because I think it ties in this mega trend that we tend to read less and consume information in more interactive formats, like videos, like this webinar, for instance. We I could have interviewed you in isolation and then posted a 10-page interview on Medium. Like, the number of
Yeah.
people who would have read through would be like probably zero. So I definitely see
Oh,
that. One trend that I do see, and wanted to get your opinion on, is product managers and designers taking charge of doing research more and more now than it was the case years ago.
yes.
Is it something that you also
Yes.
observe? Do you think it's gonna
Yes.
continue, or maybe
Yes.
hit an invisible wall at one day?
Oh, I don't know where the ball is, but what definitely is true, and this will get more and more, I think, over the in the coming years, is that you have more generalists. Like we in the industry, we call them product designers. So less and less special people in the teams, more and more generalists who can cover more of these four risks and have a broader understanding. For example, a big trend I see is that designers need to understand business even more,
Hmm.
because they have to argue business for design. And the same applies to product managers who need to understand technology even more. I see product managers who are having understanding of data science and this AI stuff and technology, a lot more understanding what is possible there, even designers. So this is definitely a trend that we see more and more generalists than specialists who are extraordinary visual designers and just for visual design in the team. I don't see this. Maybe some companies still have it who
Yeah.
have the resources, but recently this is a trend. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. So we have the emergence of generalists. We have like a or more pronounced involvement of product team in discovery and talking to users specifically, and more visualization of the outcome. I think three points that we should like remember, put it in a time capsule, and let's I'll invite you in 5 years,
Yes,
and we'll no, I
and we
invite you
will see how long I
earlier,
was.
but
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
just
yeah. Like it.
we'll do that, see how well these predictions age. And on that note, we are way over time. I'm really grateful for our Jan for this very insightful session and amazing stories. And I'm also very grateful to our audience. We got some challenging questions and questions that go to the heart of sharing knowledge and involving colleagues. So I appreciate for everyone staying here and listening to us. As I promised, the session is recorded. I'm going to post it on our YouTube channel in the coming days. And on that note, Jan, it was a pleasure to have you here, and I
Thank you for having me.
hope to have you back sometime soon.
Yes, thank you. I would always appreciate coming in here. It's so fun.